Check one, check two, check one. Going live. Just going to check a few things real quick. Give people a chance. If anybody's going to watch the live, go ahead and click on the Bible Controversy channel. Go to the channel page and check for the live. Should be on there. Let's see. Check one, check two. Check one. Is the audio good? No audio, huh? Okay, there we go. All right. Let's see. Let's begin. First of all, welcome everybody to another going over of the law. We are going to be looking at the next chapter in the book of Deuteronomy, which is Deuteronomy 16, which focuses on the feasts of Yahweh. All praise be unto Yahweh. Praise Yahweh for his law, because his law is righteous. And if we follow it, it will be our judgment, our discernment, basically. Praise be Yahweh for his word. Okay, let's start. Deuteronomy 16:1. Observe the month of Abib, and keep the Passover unto the Lord thy God. For in the month of Abib, the Lord thy God brought thee forth out of Egypt by night. So if we go into the word here, and we look at the word for Abib here, and let's just get into it here. It says, fresh young barley ears. Barley. Okay, month of ear forming. The greening of crop, the growing green, Abib. Month of Exodus and Passover, March or April. Okay, it says. So basically, when you see the barley in the green ear, that means that it is the month of Abib. Okay, and so Abib would be the beginning of spring, basically, what we call spring. All right, and let's see here. So barley is what's considered corn, and corn is not like the corn that we know, which would be maize per se, but it's more of the formation of the wheat kernel. So that's what they're talking about when it comes to corn. And this is what it means here. So corn, it's any of numerous cultivated forms of a wildly grown, usually tall annual cereal grass, bearing grains or kernels on large ears. Okay. The grains or kernels of this plant used as food for humans and livestock, or for the extraction of an edible oil or starch, an ear of this plant. So it can also mean, regular corn, like maize corn, like the Aztecs grew. It's all part of the same thing. They're all basically usually tall annual cereal grass. All right. And so this is a picture of the barley. And this is what barley looks like. So you could see here, maybe it looks like an ear of wheat. Or if you can imagine, even corn has a similar structure here. Okay. So moving on. Thou shalt therefore sacrifice the Passover unto the Lord thy God of the flock and the herd in the place which the Lord shall choose to place his name there. Okay, so the place, so it's basically saying you need to do the sacrifice of the Passover unto Yahweh, right? The sacrifice will be taken from your flock and the herd in the place which the Lord shall choose to put his name there. Okay, and in ancient Israel, the first place which the Lord put his name was in Ephraim, in Shiloh. But if you read 1 Samuel, the first couple of verses in the first chapter of Samuel, you understand why the basically the place where the Lord would choose to put his name moved, the capital, say, of Israel. So let's read the first couple of verses. It says, "Now there was a certain man of Ramathaim Zophim of Mount Ephraim, and his name was Elkanah, the son of Jeroham, the son of Elihu, the son of Tohu, the son of Zuph, an Ephraimite, or Ephrathite, sorry. And he had two wives. The name of one was Hannah, and the name of the other was Peninnah. And Peninnah had children, but Hannah had no children. And this man went up out of his city yearly to worship and to sacrifice unto the Lord of hosts in Shiloh." So you can see here in 1 Samuel, right, that the place of worship, the place where the Lord at that time had chosen to put his name, was in Shiloh. Okay, and that was in Ephraim. All right, the northern kingdom. All right, so let's look at that word Shiloh and see what it means. It means place of rest. Okay, and it says a city in Ephraim and temporary home of the Ark of the Covenant and the tabernacle, a place where Samuel grew up. Okay, all right. Let's see here. And when the time was that Elkanah offered, he gave to Peninnah his wife and to all her sons and her daughters, but unto Hannah he gave a worthy portion. Okay, so this is basically talking about the story of Samuel's mother and how she was mistreated by her competing wife of Elkanah. Okay, so if we move to the second chapter here, it says, "Now the sons of Eli." Okay, so this was the sons of the priest, right, at that time in Shiloh. It says, "Now the sons of Eli were the sons of Belial." Now, if you look up this word Belial, I believe it means worthlessness. Yeah, worthlessness. Okay, so these were like, in other words, these were good for nothings, even though they were priests. It's amazing that these priests themselves could be considered good for nothings, right? And the priest customs with the people was that when any man offered sacrifice, the priest servant came while the flesh was in seething, right, boiling, with the flesh hook of 3 teeth in his hand, and he struck it into the pan or the kettle, the cauldron or the pot, all that the flesh hook brought up, and the priest took it for himself. So they did in Shiloh unto all the Israelites that came thither. Okay. Also, before they burnt the fat, the priest servant came and said to the man that sacrificed, "Give flesh to roast for the priest, or he will not have sodden flesh of thee, but raw." And if any man said, "Let not them fail to burn the fat presently, and then take as much as thy soul desireth," then he would answer him, "Nay, but thou shalt give it to me now, and if not, I will take it by force." Okay, so there is a sin, right? You're not supposed to eat the fat, right? And let's see if I can pull that up real quick. Um, eat the fat. I should have pulled that one up previously. Let's see here. It says. Let's see here. Oh, here it is. Uh, Leviticus 7 and 23 says, "Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, Ye shall eat no manner of fat of ox, of sheep, or of goats." Okay, so this basically are all the animals that were being sacrificed before Yahweh. So it says here, "Wherefore the sin of the young men was very great before the Lord, for men abhorred the offering of the Lord." Right? So they were disrespecting Yahweh in his offerings, right? And if that wasn't bad enough, they were doing even more wicked things, okay, than that. And even it came up to Eli's ears, right? Where he said, It says, now Eli was very old and heard all that his sons did unto Israel and how they lay, right, with the women that assembled at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. So these were priests, right? They're supposed to be holy, but yet they were having sexual relations, right, with the women that assembled at the door of the tabernacle. Can you imagine, right, the disrespect and the dishonor and the disdain and the hatred they're showing for Yahweh by doing this? And even their father said, hey, I heard about this. And he says, why do you do ye such things? For I hear of your evil dealings by all this people. And he said, nay, my sons, for it is no good report that I hear. Ye make the Lord's people to transgress. If one man sin against another, the judge shall judge him. But if a man sins against Yahweh, who shall entreat for him? Notwithstanding, they hearkened not unto his voice of their father, because the Lord would slay them. All right, so Yahweh allowed them to continue in their sins, not to listen to the rebuke of their father and to repent and to stop their evil ways, right? Because Yahweh was going to kill them, right, for this deep, deep disrespect of the things of Yahweh. So this all happened in Shiloh, right? So you can understand why, the capital per se of Israel was moved. All right. Okay. And then eventually it was moved to Jerusalem. And then here we have 1 Kings 14:21. And Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, reigned in Judah. Rehoboam was 41 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, the city which the Lord did choose out of all the tribes of Israel. Jerusalem, the city which the Lord did choose out of all the tribes of Israel to put his name there. And his mother's name was Naamah, an Ammonitess. Okay, so there you could see the capital, the place which the Lord would choose to put his name, was in Shiloh. Later ended up getting moved to Jerusalem, Zion, the city of David. Okay, and there it is, right? That's the famous depiction of the Temple of Solomon. Okay, and how it may have looked. Okay, so moving on. It says, thou shalt therefore sacrifice the Passover unto the Lord thy God of the flock of thy herd in this place which the Lord shall choose to place his name there. Thou shalt eat no unleavened bread with it. 7 days shalt thou eat unleavened bread therewith, even the bread of affliction. So sometimes you'll hear in the Bible, right, where the story of Ahab and God, what's the king of Israel at the time was Jehoshaphat, right? And when they were looking, Jehoshaphat was like, "Isn't there a prophet of the Lord that we can talk to?" Right? So I believe they were feeding that prophet like with the bread of affliction, or even I think if not there, or it may be in Jeremiah where it talks about feeding somebody with the bread of affliction. This is what the bread of affliction is, right? Maybe sometimes you read like, "What's a bread of affliction?" Like, I don't know. It's like, is it bread that doesn't taste good? Is it moldy? Like, what's wrong with it? This is what it is. So it says, thou shalt eat no leavened bread with it. 7 days shalt thou eat unleavened bread therewith, even the bread of affliction. So the bread of affliction is bread without leaven, okay? Unrisen bread. For thou camest forth out of the land of Egypt in haste, that thou mayest remember the day when thou camest forth out of the land of Egypt all the days of thy life. And there shall be no leavened bread seen with thee in all thy coast 7 days, neither shall there anything of the flesh which thou sacrifice the first day at even remain all night until the morning. All right, so the rule is that there is not to be any leavened bread, right, in all thy coasts 7 days. Okay, and neither anything of the flesh which thou sacrifice. So that lamb, right, or the goat that had been sacrificed for Passover is supposed to be consumed, and you're supposed to burn the rest of it with fire before the morning comes up. Okay. And it says, thou mayest not sacrifice the Passover within any of thy gates, which the Lord thy God giveth thee. So again, you're supposed to come to that place where Yahweh will choose to actually do this, right? To actually perform the Passover, right? In the sacrifice of the sheep, and all this, the other things that come along with Passover. You're supposed to do it in the place which Yahweh shall choose to put his name. So, um, in the earlier case of Israel, it would have been Shiloh. Uh, Later on, it would be the city of David, Zion, Jerusalem. Right. It says, but at the place which the Lord thy God shall choose to place his name, there thou shalt sacrifice the Passover at evening, at the going down of the sun, at the season that thou camest forth out of Egypt. Okay. It says, and thou shalt roast and eat it in the place which the Lord thy God shall choose, and thou shalt turn in the morning and go unto thy tents. Okay, so here is a picture of leaven. Okay, so maybe a lot of people have an idea about what leaven is, and how they should get it out of their house. And is it baking soda? Is it baking powder? Is it yeast? Is it yeast extract? Um, oh, what's another one? Baking soda. Is it any of these things? Is it all of them? Okay, so if we let's see here. Okay, so it says here, this particular word that they use for leavened bread, it says things leavened. Leaven. It says forbidden at Passover. But see if I can. The actual leaven that they're talking about here is not a dry agent, right? It's not something like yeast, or like a baking powder or baking soda. So leavened bread. Okay, let's see here. Leaven. Okay. All right. Well, I can't find it here, but let me see if I can find it somewhere else. Okay. Okay. Leaven. Okay. Here it is. Leaven. So let's go to Exodus 12 and 15. Okay. So it says, 7 days ye shall eat unleavened bread, even the first day you shall put away leaven. Okay. So if we look at this word leaven here, it says swelling by fermentation, leaven, leaven. Okay, so root word, let's go to root word etymology. It means to remain, it means to leave, it means remnant. So basically, we're not talking about like yeast, we're not talking about baking soda, baking powder, any of that stuff like that would be considered today to be a leavening agent. But we're talking more about something that looks like this. And that's leaving. The reason why they call it leaving is because you leave it. It's the leftover, right? The remnant, just like we see in the root word etymology. Um, this is what they're talking about. So this, imagine like if you've ever made bread, like sourdough especially. This is a picture of sourdough starter. So basically what it is, it's uh, imagine this as like a concentrated form of already risen bread, right? So you would take a little bit of this out, you'd leave most of it, right? And then you would put it in flour, you'd knead it, and you'd put it up, and it would rise, right? And you would have leavened bread at that point. And they would keep this jar around, maybe on the kitchen counter or something, if you can imagine. And they would feed it. So you feed it with sugar. Uh, you can feed it like with I believe you can feed it with flour, um, so it doesn't die basically, and you leave it around as a leavening agent. That's where it gets its name from. It's leaven. Okay, so this is what they're talking about. So I know like a lot of people, I think they just assume that they they're talking about like dry yeast, because there's yeast in the air and you can't get rid of it. If you just leave stuff out on your counter, right, the yeast is going to get in there. The yeast is everywhere. It's in the air and everything. So there's no possible way you can get rid of that. So if you think about common sense, go down to the root word etymology that we were looking at here, and it's sha'ar, right? It means to leave, to be remain, to be left over, right? So this is what they're talking about. Okay. All right. And it says also here that it says, thou mayest not sacrifice the Passover within any of thy gates, which the Lord thy God giveth thee, but at the place which the Lord thy God shall choose to place his name, there shalt thou sacrifice the Passover at evening, at the going down of the sun, at the season that thou camest forth out of Egypt. Okay, so at the time that you came out of Egypt, he's setting up a festival, a feast date, which reoccurs at that same season, right? And it says, thou shalt roast and eat it in the place which the Lord thy God shall choose, and thou shalt turn in the morning and go unto thy tents. Okay, so after you eat it, you basically this observance of this law, this feast, it takes place during the evening, right? But in the morning time, right, when the morning comes, you're supposed to go into your tent. Okay. And here we have a depiction of some tents in the Native American style, another part of their culture that is a witness to them that they are, in fact, the Israelites of the Bible. Okay. And it says, 6 days shalt thou eat unleavened bread, and on the seventh day shalt be a solemn assembly to the Lord thy God. Thou shalt do no work therein. Okay, so on the last day, the seventh day of this observance, is a solemn assembly. So, right, this is always a solemn assembly is the gathering of Israel, right? It's an observance, it's considered a Sabbath, it's a day of rest, no work. Okay, and that is the last day of the Passover. Okay, and it says, 7 weeks shalt thou number unto thee. Begin to number the 7 weeks from such a time. Okay, so now it's talking about a different feast. So that was the conclusion of the first feast. Now it's the beginning of the second feast. 7 weeks shalt thou number unto thee. Begin to number the 7 weeks from such time as thou puttest the sickle to the corn. Okay, so when you begin to harvest the corn, now remember, if we go back to the meaning of corn, it's here. It's the cultivated forms of widely grown, usually tall annual cereal grass. So, right, could be talking about barley, could be talking about wheat, could be talking about corn. But we know that they are talking about some form of this tall grass. Okay, so if we go here and we check out the word that they use here, 7 weeks from such time as thou beginnest to put the sickle to the corn. Okay. So we look at here, it says standing grain. Okay. So that qualifies barley to be a standing grain, wheat, even corn, maize, right? Because it's part of that same family. And in fact, that's where it gets its name from. Okay. So it says here, let's just read it again. Says 7 weeks shalt thou number unto thee. Begin to number the 7 weeks from such time as thou beginnest to put the sickle to the corn. So as soon as you start harvesting that particular harvest, and then it says, thou shalt keep the feast of weeks. So this particular feast is called the Feast of Weeks when you begin to harvest unto the Lord thy God with a tribute of a free will offering of thine hand, which thou shalt give unto the Lord thy God according as the Lord thy God hath blessed thee. So the amount that Yahweh has blessed you um, is what you keep in mind in your spirit as you give your free will offering unto God as a show of love and respect, to let Yahweh know that you recognize that He has blessed you and He's had mercy on you and He has given you a bountiful harvest, that you want to give Him the best of that harvest to recognize what He's done for you as a way of saying thank you. Okay. And thou shalt rejoice before the Lord thy God. Okay, well, here's a picture of the harvest here. So you have the harvest, and they are harvesting here. Looks like barley. Okay. Oh, that's the next one. It says, and thou, and let's see. And thou shalt rejoice before the Lord thy God, thou and thy son and thy daughter and thy manservant and thy maidservant and the Levite that is within thy gates, and the stranger and the fatherless and the widow that are among you in the place which the Lord thy God hath chosen to place his name there. And thou shalt remember that thou wast a bondman in Egypt, and thou shalt observe to do these statutes. Okay, so you got to remember when you're doing these things, you remember and say, the story of, if you are an Israelite, the story of our ancestors that were in bondage, that were enslaved, right? That were treated poorly, that were looked down upon, that were looked upon as though they were not good enough to be considered a normal member of society, that they were under hard bondage. Okay. We got to remember those times and think about how Yahweh has blessed us and will bless us when he takes us through Yahweh once again into the promised land, right? Into Israel in the second Exodus. Okay. And thou shalt remember that thou wast a bondman in Egypt, and thou shalt observe to do these statutes. So again, another exhortation uh, of how important the law is. Do you believe in Yahweh? You believe in the promises of God? Do you want to take part in that? Do you want to come in to the promised land led by Yahweh? Does that sound good to you? Okay. If it does, then you have to observe and do these statutes. All right. Because the observance of the law is showing Yahweh love, just as Yahweh walked in all of his law, and he is our example. We should do the same and show love to God and show him honor and respect in that way. All right. It says, and thou shalt rejoice in thy feast, thou and thy son and thy daughter and thy manservant and thy maidservant and the Levite, the stranger and the fatherless and the widow that are within thy gates. 7 days shalt thou keep a solemn feast unto the Lord thy God in the place which the Lord shall choose, because the Lord thy God shall bless thee in all thine increase and in all the works of thine hands. Therefore thou shalt surely rejoice. Okay. 3 times in a year shalt all thy males appear before the Lord thy God in the place which he shall choose, in the feast of unleavened bread, in the feast of weeks, and in the feast of tabernacles, and they shall not appear before the Lord empty. Okay, so whenever any of these feasts take place, you you're not supposed to show up empty. And what that means is you're not supposed to show up without an offering. You're not supposed to do these observances without an offering. You have to offer unto Yahweh something, right? And not just anything. I mean, because we can all, we can look at the last chapter in the Old Testament, right? And it talks about how uh, God was saying, hey, shut the doors to this place, and don't allow anybody else to bring me these sad and sick offerings that you wouldn't even offer to your governor, because he won't accept it. but yet you offer it to the Most High, the creator of heaven and earth, right? So when you give, you have to give to Yahweh something good. And that's why it talks about earlier in the chapter to give according as he has blessed thee, right? It says here, it says, and thou shalt keep the feast of weeks unto the Lord thy God with the tribute of a freewill offering of thine hand, which thou shalt give unto the Lord thy God according as the Lord thy God hath blessed thee. So according as the Lord thy God hath blessed thee, right? He has given to you such good things. You should give unto Yahweh such good things, because you could never outgive Yahweh in the first place anyway, and Yahweh is good. All right. So it says here, every man shall give as he is able, right? So you're not going to expect somebody who is working, minimum wage job to give $10,000 to Yahweh because he doesn't have it. You know what I mean? We got to use common sense and exercise judgment in these particular matters, right? So it says, every man shall give as he is able, according to the blessing of the Lord thy God, which he hath given thee. Okay. Judges and officers shalt thou make in all thy gates, which the Lord thy God giveth thee throughout thy tribes, and they shall judge the people with just judgment. Okay, so it's talking about setting up a division of of being able to settle disputes uh, among the people, so that way there can be like a system, like almost like a court system, really, to make sure that people get treated fairly and that they're able to attain justice, because Israel is not perfect, right? We're just like, we have the feelings of men, right? We can get jealous, we can become hateful, right? We're not only capable of love, but we are also capable of envy. We're not just capable of peace, but we also make war. All right. So we do have to have a system of governance here, right? And that is ultimately the law. But then there are those who, I guess, maybe arbitrate, and those would be the Levites, who explain the law, but yet we are all bound to the law, right? And there would also be other people of good reputation within the certain tribes of Israel, um, and the people who are under them, so on and so forth. Okay, it says, thou shalt not wrest judgment, thou shalt not respect persons, neither take a gift, for a gift doth blind the eyes of the wise and pervert the words of the righteous. Okay, so if you take a look in here and you'd be like, maybe you're like, oh, okay, well, I never take gifts because I don't celebrate birthdays, and I don't celebrate Christmas, so when do I get a gift? But let's take a look at that word and see what it means. It says present, a bribe. So in other words, you could take a look at politics in Washington, D.C., and you can see this happen on a regular basis, where, say, like the big pharma will make a donation to either side, the Democrat or the Republican side. Now, all of a sudden, big pharma gets a big pass on anything that they do. All right, so this is where we see that how unjust this world, right, at the tip of the iceberg of how unjust this world is, because the governors of this place are taking bribes, and therefore you can see corruption widespread, right? Okay, so let's see here. It says, that which is altogether just shalt thou follow. I'm sorry. Thou shalt not wrest judgment. Thou shalt not respect persons, right? You're not supposed to do anybody any favors over somebody else. You're supposed to look at people as equal and hear their cause and judge between them. Neither take a gift, a bribe, for a bribe, a gift, doth blind the eyes of the wise and pervert the words of the righteous. And here you have a picture of somebody taking that secret gift, somebody taking that bribe, that gift that is done in secret, not publicly known, to hide motivation, right? They may look good on the outside, but inwardly, they're full of dead men's bones. Okay. That which is altogether just shalt thou follow, that thou mayest live and inherit the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Okay, so it says, look, paraphrasing. This is how I see this. It says, that which is altogether just. Okay, anything that is good, right? You need to follow that, even when nobody's looking. Anything that's just. When nobody's looking, when people are looking, doesn't matter. That is your mission. You always follow that thou mayest live, right? And inherit the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. So notice this here is that God's looking for people to worship him in purity, so he could give you that land. He wants to give you this land, right? But if you're going to follow him and you're not going to be genuine about it, you can forget it. You have to be pure. You have to check yourself. You have to look at your motivations and why you do things. You have to see the world in the light of the law to understand the things that are going on around you so you can be able to discern what is good and what is bad. And this is why we're going over the law, is because this is your judgment. This is your discernment. So it's very important. In my opinion, it's the most important thing you could do. I mean, it's great to understand that whether or not you're an Israelite, okay, that's good, but all that comes secondary to the law. You know, it's great to, look into prophecy and to try to understand where things going and, how the prophets were proved, in the past. That's great, and this is a reason why why the Bible is highly regarded. But even as great as that is, trying to look out and see what's going on in the future, it's still, even though it's a good thing, it's still not as important as following the law. The law, the law of Yahweh is the most important thing that you can learn about, that you can execute, because it is the thing that is going to put you on the right hand side of Yahweh, right? Where there is that distinction between the sheep and the goats. You want to do those good things, and those good things are the good works of the law, as opposed to disregarding the law and putting it behind your back, not doing those things, which you can never please God if you don't execute the works of the law, right? Okay, and then we can go ahead and pull a scripture for that. If we go over here, I think it's Revelation 19, but let me just check. Let's see, commandment. Faith. All right, here it is, Revelation 14 and 12. And these are the words of Yahweh. It says, here is the patience of the saints. Okay. This is what you do while you're waiting for the salvation. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Yahweh, Jesus, right? Two things. You got to keep the commandments of God and the faith of Yahweh, right? Walking as he walked, learning from your master, your teacher, Yahweh. And he always pointed back to the Father. He always pointed back to the law. He says, men shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth forth of the mouth of God. So a lot of people have been convinced by this world that the Old Testament, the word of God, doesn't matter today, when they couldn't be any more incorrect. The word of God does matter. The word of Yahweh does matter. So we have to familiarize ourselves with it, so we can understand it, so we can think about it, so we can execute the law, so we could do those things which please Yahweh, so we could show Yahweh love. Because if you're ignorant of the law, how can you show Yahweh love? That's like saying, hey, man, going to a book signing, and you go up to the author and you say, hey, I really, I really love, the message, that you're spreading. And he says, oh yeah, really? Did you read the book? No, I didn't, but it's what everybody says. So, I mean, how much respect is that there? It's almost like a disrespect even to go to the book signing. So imagine the creator of heaven and earth. You know, he has a word that's so potent and so powerful, but yet you're unfamiliar with it, but at the same time saying that you love him. Uh, that's a conundrum there. Those two things don't mix. So this is why the law is important. If you're not familiar with the law, get familiar with it. Show Yahweh that you love him. Okay. All right. And then let's finish up here. Let's see here. It says, was that it? Okay. And it says, oh, this was it, but I went to the other one. Okay. Okay. And it says, that which is altogether just shall thou follow, that thou mayest live, and inherit the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Follow the law and go into the land which Yahweh promised to your forefathers. Okay. Thou shalt not plant thee a grove of any trees near unto the altar of the Lord Yahweh thy God, which thou shalt make thee. Okay. Again, talking about the place where the Lord will choose to put his name. Neither shalt thou set up any image which the Lord thy God hateth. Okay, right. So that goes back to the the commandments, right? About making an image. So let's go to Deuteronomy 5. Says says, "Thou shalt not make thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the waters beneath." Again, an exhortation to follow the commandments. And I thought I put another one here. I guess I didn't. If I did, let's see. Oh, here it is. Okay. And I always like to end off with this one, which is Psalm 29 and 2. Give unto the Lord the glory due unto his name. Worship the Lord in the beauty of holiness. Oh, this is it. Here it is. All right. So, yes, give unto the Lord the glory due unto his name. Worship the Lord in the beauty of holiness. The beauty of holiness is that purity. That is beauty. Being pure and thinking about meditating on Yahweh's word. You have to, and his word is the law. Meditating on that law and doing those things which are right in the sight of Yahweh, living as Yahweh um, does. So, with that, give all praise to Yahweh in the name of Yahweh. And let's see. I don't know. Am I lucky enough to have any live viewers? Let's see. Oh, hey, Chilo, son of battle. How's it going, brother? Good to see you in here. Thank you for showing up to my live. I appreciate it. So just thank you, and just want to say, everybody, um, walk in the light of the law of Yahweh, and be blessed.